Now, some of the probable reasons or some of the possible ways or prominent question which you need to ask regarding the data is what are the data validity checks? As a programmer, it's a question that I need to ask and answer. And is the data which is coming need to be tested? Why should data validation be given focus in testing? Because if the task of validation is done by the programmer himself, should be given importance and focus in during the process of testing. And why do we expect a validated data? Because the user is not interested. He can provide any kind of the data, but it is we who are more concerned regarding the type of the data which is flowing in from the user side. So why do we expect the valid data? It will ease our task. So something or simple answer to this question could be, yes, my job becomes easy if the data input is right and correct coming and flowing in from the user side. So these questions are important and their answer may act as a motivation to generate the test cases using the data validity checks. So we need to apply data validity checks. We'll see the example how to do it. The handling of the data is a very important part of the project. Now these are the broad three classification or three categories of it. We can have the reject known bad data or sanitize all data. So if you look at each and every concept one by one, first is accept only the valid data. So we forcefully convince the user to provide only the valid data to us, because invalid data may force the software to behave unexpectedly and may lead to the failure. Simple example, if you take the of the ATM machines, if you swipe the card, fine. If the card is valid, it will immediately scan the information, because there is a MICR strip, and nowadays you've got chip only card also. They are able to scan the information, the customer name, the customer account number, do we have got sufficient credit limit or debit limit in our accounts. So they expect the data to be valid in nature. But if I swipe any other card, maybe my driving license card, which is of the same dimension, or my car registration card, which is almost of the same dimensions, so nothing will happen. And immediately it will throw me the exception, because it accepts only the valid data to come in from the user side, then only it will function. And if you look some of the software which are not properly coded or they're not proper exception handling is done, they immediately fail at this point of time. And we can see a blue color screen on the ATM machine with some junk characters written on it. Means it was not designed to handle such a kind of the inputs. So because software accept only the valid data to come into the to receive it. The software should accept only the input that are known to be safe and accepted, which is very difficult in a real-time scenario. This can only happen if you are running a software in your own company for like just like most of the company got a HRMS software, wherein they keep the information of all the personal information of the employee, the date of birth, the name, the addresses, the salaries, the package. So there all the employees are trained and they know that this is how want to use the software. So they will receive only the valid data accept. But I can take the example of my own university. We have got on admission process going on. So most of the students who enter the data, sometimes they even enter the wrong names. Now then they have been writing their name for the last 18 years of their life, and then when they're filling the form, online form for admission, they even enter the wrong name or wrong phone number or wrong email address or wrong addresses. So it becomes very complicated, and the software will take the portal which has been designed will receive it, because it is not coded in that manner by the NIC. Because what we have done in IP University, we have outsourced the entire admission process to the NIC. So NIC has got their own counseling software through which the process gets done. So what we do as a teachers or maybe as a team, counseling team, we coordinate with the NIC. We go to the NIC. We have got Delhi Secretariat. NIC office is there, just beside by the CM's office. So we go there. Wait on Tuesday. I need to go there. So we coordinate them. We help them because the software is well good, designed well developed, but they need to handle the data which is going to be provided as input by the user. So, and we can't force the end user to accept only the valid data. Any kind of data will flow in and it will be accepted here. And then we need to recheck again that if the data is correct or wrong, and we will drop a mail to the student and then he provides the correct data, or maybe the university has certain charges also. He need to pay the charges for it, and then only the data will be corrected. It is just a way to force the user to enter the correct data, because if certain penalty is there, then he will be very conscious while entering the data. Otherwise, he can just enter the data like anything. So one is accept only valid data if your software designed in that manner, or reject known bad data if the input data is not as expected. The software should reject it and the appropriate error message should be displayed. Just like most of the online shopping portals are designed in such a manner only that they reject known bad data. They will not allow the online shopping to get completed if any error there is, any problem is there in the entire process. So they will reject the bad data. The last category is to sanitize all data. So data sanitization is a process of purifying or filtering the undesirable data both at the input level as well as at the output level in order to make it harmless and safe for the system. So when we are storing the data finally in the database, at that point of time, proper, correct, accurate and validated data need to be archived in the system, in the database, because that data will now be used for many number of times. So right at the time of the student when he's applying for admission into a college or in a university, at that point of time, sanitized data, correct data should be received. Because once the data has been stored in a database, now the admit card will be generated for it. Then the student will come for admission at the time of counseling. Then the same data will be used. Then the same data will be used for generation of enrollment number. Then the same data will be used in the examination system. So it is always important the very first stage, the data should be very correctly and nicely stored so that we do not have any problem during its data retrieval as well as further usage. So we'll take an example. How do we do it? Let's take an example student registration form, because nowadays HTML JavaScript code is widely used for carrying out this task of this data validity and the data usage. So if you look at this form, what this form says is a student registration form. I would like to make sure that user enters the data compulsorily for all the fields within my HTML page, right? Simple way, I apply the JavaScript validations. So here if you see, the initial coding is all simple. We start with the HTML page, then the head, then the title, then the student registration form. Then we apply the JavaScript validation because HTML does not itself won't provide the large number of validations. So we take the help of the JavaScript. So we start with the script tag. Type is the name of the attribute, then text, and it is a JavaScript type of it. So one of the very simple way to sanitize the bad data here is you take the help of the scripting language that provides the inbuilt functionality for it. So what do we do here? We define a function called check all. Now what does this function does? It will just check whether the user has entered the value for all the fields or the of the HTML page or not. So what does it do? If you look at the loop for I is equal to 0, I less than document, which is a currently active HTML document. It has got number of fields, dot elements, dot length, that becomes the stopping condition. Then I plus, just keep on incrementing it. Now, currently we say f dot value. So we are checking whether the value is being provided as an input by the user is correct or not. So we force the user to enter the right value. Please enter the value for the field, and then f dot style dot border color, we can change the color and then bring the focus back to the same component which has where the user is not entering a value. So return false means return the control back to the same component the user is not entering a value, and return true will take it back to the submission. So when we are when we should make a call to this function on the click of the submit button. So on the click of the submit button, the check all will get activated and it will make sure that the user enters the value for all the components of the HTML page. Then we close down the script tag, close down the head tag, we come to the registration form. So in the body tag, we have got the header tag h1 to h6. 6 header tags are there. So we are using the h3. Then we create a table. So alignment is done. Table becomes a tag, alignment becomes the attribute, and center becomes the alignment. Where do you want to position? Left, right, or center? Then we use the cell padding and initialize the value 10 to it. Now let us say we have got a first row within the student registration form, and since we're creating a table, so we write the first row Then within the first cell of the table, that is TD, so we open the TD tag, write the first name and close down the TD tag. Then keeping the same row continuous, we open the second cell, that is first row and second column. So we say input type is equal to text, name is equal to first name. Now what we are doing here, we are using a max length property, which has been provided by HTML5 and further version of the language, and we set it to upper cap of 30. Now in this way we can apply the simple data validation on the length, because we are using the inbuilt features of the particular scripting language or a programming language that will make sure that we as a programmer does not have, otherwise what we would have done, we would have received the text within the text box, which is here. We have already given the name as the name of the text box first underscore name. So we have to apply the if condition to check whether the value is within the limit or not. So if first underscore name less than or whatever we want like to apply the validation. So we need to apply now, but with the help of the max length property, we don't have to do it now. So moment 30 characters are hit, after it will not allow 31st character to be entered. So using the predefined features, it becomes very, now these things don't need to be tested because we are using inbuilt features and they will work perfectly fine. Another example which we can take, same way, last name is okay, date of birth. Now why don't we provide that's the best way, why don't we provide the options wherein all the date, month and the year features are already provided to the user. So the user does not have to worry about the does not have to manually enter. He just have to make a selection. So now it is focus of most of the website administrators and the website designer is we should bare minimal ask the user to enter the values. Most of the things should be selected, because in the case of selection, first of all, validation doesn't need to be done, and the user will only make a conscious selection of the, for example, date of birth, date, month and year. We don't need to prompt the user to enter, directly make a selection. Gender, male and female, a radio button can serve the purpose. The name of the city, the name of the country, you already preload the list box with all the values. User just have to make a selection. Otherwise, user may enter the wrong value or the incorrect spelling mistake could be there. For example, if you use Bangladesh, he may enter the incorrect spelling, or Sri Lanka. Or the selection box in the list box, he doesn't have to use the keyboard. He can directly use the mouse to make a selection from the list box. So city name, country name, date of birth, gender, many things can be preloaded into the list box or combo box, and then user can directly make a selection. So focus should be more on the selection rather than on entering of the data when we design a web page or when we write a code where we need to accept an input from the user. Because if you accept input from the user, be ready to validate the input. Be ready to apply the if conditions wherein you check every character which is being entered as input by the user, because before uh, if the proper validation is not done, then we might receive wrong input or incorrect input, and this incorrect input will make us slow way into the databases. I have seen the students whose name has entered wrongly in the first year. Until fourth year, they struggle with the administration of the university to get the name corrected, or their phone number corrected, or their email address corrected. They keep on writing the applications, and then the application keeps on coming and going. It takes a hell lot of time. So it's always better that whenever we are entering a data, now since we play a double role here, you are a student also, plus you are also working, so you know the importance of the data, that it should all be correctly and validated before it is archived into a database. Because once it is archived, nobody will spend time on the correction of the data. So in our university, the correction is a paid process. We ask the students to bear a, we ask the parents to bear a certain amount of money to make a correction, and that only way is, penalty is the only way just to tell the student to be conscious of while entering the data, so that they should be very critical and they should be very conscious and should not enter just like that. They should be thoughtful enough to do it consciously when they're entering a data. So like date of birth, month, year, everything can be preloaded into the list boxes. Same way when we talk of the his qualification, student qualification, if a student is coming for MTech, so he will be always doing BTech definitely, or getting the admission to the MTech or the MCA program, or maybe MSc Computer Science. So these degrees can also be preloaded within the list boxes. Same way, name of the university. So almost all UGC, all affiliated UGC affiliated university can be loaded into the list box. so that user does not have to enter, because if he, let's say he's done the BTech from Rajasthan Technical University, so while he's entering the spelling, again he can make a error. So it's better that we give a list box to the user so that bare minimal error is committed by him. Though he can still commit the error by letting his own name, his own address, his phone number, and email ID, because these four things has to be given by as an input by the user only. These things can't be preloaded. A city name can be preloaded. The pin code can be preloaded into the list box so as to avoid the receiving of the incorrect data. But the address has to be entered as input by the user. So we can design the form for the same something like this, and where maximum things are input. We can use a max length property. We can use if I want to make sure certain fields are read only. So what I can do, I can use a read only attribute like something like this, and then I can initialize the value to be read only so that the user does not have the permission to edit the same. So the form is simple. So I can view the same form, let's say in Chrome. A form will look something like this. So validations are there right along with the place where it is being entered as input by the user. The user is conscious that what he is going to enter the input. So maximum range is 30 and the valid characters are lowercase a to z and the uppercase a to z. And the date of birth, no user entry we require. He just have to enter the, he has to just choose the value from these list boxes, the date of birth, date, month, and the year. That simplifies the task of the programmer also, because now he does not have to apply the validation. User will only have to make a selection. Like the country was disabled, so whatever I keep on entering, it is a read-only property. So we should always take the help of the scripting language or programming language that supports the inbuilt features for providing a data validation. Because that makes the job of the programmer as well as tester very easy. So we come back to our slide. Once we have done the front-end testing of the data which is being received as an input from the user, and the data is found to be correct, validated, accurate, sanitized, then we go for the storage of the data into the databases. So we use something called the database testing. So it's a very popular in application where huge databases are maintained in items on the regular basis, and the items are regularly searched, or they are added, or they're deleted, or they're updated and viewed. So the database testing is a very important part because if the proper data is not archived and not properly stored, it might create a problem in the future applications of it. I hope it is audible and visible.
Yes,
There are many commercially available tools that make stall claim about the stress testing. However, the applicability is not universally acceptable. Now, there is stress testing we'll discuss later on, but since it has to be introduced at the time of database testing, we'll use the test ng tool. I will give you a demo of it, how we can insert the functions at the time of insertion of the records or the modification of record within our database programs. So when we deal with the DDL, DML, and the DCL statements, the data definition language statements that operate from the table like create table, drop table, or the alter one, or the data manipulation language statement which talks of the insertion of a row, modification of a row, or deletion of the row, or the data control language statement like grant and revoke permissions. So when we are doing it, we need to properly make sure that the test cases are designed correctly, so that when we write a program to this which has received the input and now it is going for storage into a database, proper test cases can be designed for the database testing. So many queries are generated by the various users simultaneously, and the database should be able to handle them in a reasonable time frame. So the user can write select star from table name, or the user can write select star from table name where column name is equal to this and column name is equal to this. The user can write multiple number of the SQL queries. He will just give the input. We are going to generate the queries as the programmer, but input has to come in from his own side. For example, the railway reservation system. It's extensive reservation systems where multiple queries are being received simultaneously by multiple number of the clients from around the India or around the world. So what do we need to do? We need to design the system in such a manner that even the queries are generated, they do not put an extra load into the databases as such. So we can have the web testing along with the database testing. We can have inventory management and other large database applications, which becomes easy to handle with. Testing of the stress level for database is a real challenge for the tester because you need to test that if your data size of the table means the number of records or the number of rows in the table reach to a very high figure. uh, is it when we are executing a query to fetch the record from the table, the processing should not get slowed down. So we use something called indexing mechanisms for this. The clustered and the non-clustered indexing can be done. We can write views that helps us to quick fetching of it. So we need to make sure that the addition of more records in the table of a database does not degrade the database performance. The database tuning is very important. We need to manage the tables in a proper manner so that when the user fires the SQL query, the data should be fetched instantly. It should not happen that it takes a very long amount of time, because nobody in the world has got a patience now. Everyone wants a quick access to the information. So we got ACID properties of the locking properties. So ACID, we all know it: atomicity, concurrency, isolation, and durability properties of the databases, which should be ensured when you write a test cases. They should not get violated. Or the locking has to be done, the like read-only lock, the update lock, at what time the lock is to be executed, what time the lock is to be released. They again have to be properly ensured so that the process of data fetching, data new information getting added, or the existing information getting modified can be done smoothly from a database. We'll take an example as a part of the as a part of our lab, wherein we write a program to make sure that the database testing is performed nicely. When we come to the maintenance, software maintenance is becoming important and expensive activity day by day, because maintaining a software is a very tough job. And we have also something called the word legacy software. Means how long a person should be allowed to use the same version of the software. For example, let's do a theory before take an example. The development of any software can take few years, maybe typically 1 year or 2 year or maybe up to 4 year, depending on the complexity level of the software, depending on the scope of the software, and what all the requirement of the software is, what all the user expect from the software to deliver. So it can take few months to few years. But the same software need to be maintained for a very long period. So maybe for 10 to 15 years. Now, this becomes a challenge because the development team, the persons who were a part of the development team may not stay there for so long within a company. So when the new developers join in, it may be expected them that they do not write any new code, but they just got a task to maintain the existing software. And most of the students who join the industry, the BTechs or the MTechs or the MCA, they always expect that they will go and directly start launching themselves and they start writing the code. But that 90% of the cases doesn't happen. Most of the time they are put into a team where they are asked to maintain the already existing software, provide the support to a client, and wherever the client suffers a problem, help him troubleshoot his problems as such. So maintenance of software is a very important life, because not every day a new software will get a build up. So it's a very important activity which is the whole of the team need to get involved into it. And if you look at the cost, almost two-thirds of the cost of the software production goes into the software maintenance activity. So it's a very long shelf life activity. So maybe running from just a couple of years to maybe 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. And the software inevitably changes whatever well written and designed initially it may be. So changes will happen depending on the requirement of the client. So minor changes can be done, or the major changes can be done. Major changes means introducing almost a new version of the software. Or there are minor changes, it can still be done accommodating the client, whatever he expects. You can do little bit changes here and there, but if the client requirement changes very largely, and you might want a new forms altogether or a new functionality to be added into a software, and that will require a major version to be released of the software. It can't be done within the minor releases. So there could be many reasons for such changes which it can happen. So let's look for some of the reasons for the changes in the software. So some errors have been discovered during the actual usage of the software. So because we had discussed the alpha testing and the beta testing, certain errors still remain there. So they might get now detected during the actual use of the software when the client is actually using them. And the users may have requested for additional functionality. Now the requirement of the user is something very dynamic in nature. We cannot force the user to stop giving us the new requirements. So again, his requirement can be minor, semi-minor, or very major requirements. So user may request for certain new functionality will require the cost. But his existing functionality, a minor modification here or there, maybe some color coding gets changed, or maybe certain inbuilt features not working smoothly to his requirement, they can get altered or modified. So minor changes can still be accommodated. Or the software have to be modified due to change in some external policies and principles. Just like when the GST got introduced, almost all the financial accounting software had to incorporate those features. So any change in the policy of the government, like the customs policy control or the usage of the GST or the change in the income tax policies, they need to get incorporated into the software. So that's not something the client is expecting, but that has to be done to make sure that the software remains uh, up to date and in tune to the government policies. For example, when European countries had decided to go for single European currency, they started using the euro. This change has to be effective across all the banking system software, because the transaction started getting happened in the euro. So otherwise, they were all using the pounds, and the every country had their got own single currency. But when euro got introduced, almost all the banking system software around the world have to include or incorporate the euro as one of the European currencies where the transactions can be done. So there, here client has no role to play. It has to be done by the software company just to make sure that yes, software remains up to date and in tune with the government policies. But maintenance of the software can be a very long and tedious process, and there are certain clients whose requirement may not change. So they will expect that the continuous support should be provided by the company. Now this support can go from years to years. So at times it may happen that if you look at some of the software which got designed and developed in Foxbase or in Fortran or maybe in Pascal language, they were given to the company and the company were using it. So when the time with came to migration from the original legacy databases or legacy software application to the modern day programming language C, C++, Java, C Sharp, ADO.NET, so most of the company were reluctant. They were saying that we are still happy with the software, but the now company cannot provide the tech support to these clients because nowadays no programmer work in the area of the Foxbase or Fortran or Pascal or COBOL. So they need to shift or upgrade to their previous client to the modern day programming to the software designed and developed in the modern day programming languages or technologies. Now that is something which the company has to bear a cost, and if the client is considerate enough, he might bear a cost. Otherwise, the company himself has to do it because nowadays no more these languages are being taught, and no more programmers are there working in these areas. So it's a software maintenance is a very long process. It's a tedious process, and most of the time companies initially they provide a support for 1 to 2 years, and after that it's all paid. So nobody will provide free of cost support to 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. Or maybe if there's a lot of maintenance activity because it's an ongoing activity, most of the company also uh, recruit the engineers, the software engineer, and post them at the client site only. That whatever the client is expecting, keep on doing the modification, and they will keep on getting salary from the software company, but they will not be sitting on premise. They will be directly working on the client site, and whatever the client is expecting them, they keep on modifying the source code there, and they keep on satisfying the requirements of the client. So software maintenance is a long activity, and almost everyone has to go through the process before they are launched onto the new software. So some restructuring may have to be done in the software to improve the efficiency and the performance. That could also be the reason for the change in the code of the software, because restructuring process is required. Maybe at the developer side, maybe because of the software company, or maybe from the client side. The software may have to be modified due to change in existing technology. That is what I was discussing. We have to shift or upgrade to the latest technology, uh, and there is no backup support provided to the old technologies as such. And same thing also goes for the hardware. We all look at our smartphones. a stage comes where these companies force you to upgrade your product to the latest tools and technologies, because they keep stop providing the support to your previous products, because they believe that the shelf life of the product is over, and no tech support or the backup support or the customer sales service will be provided for a particular software project or for the hardware devices. So we compulsory force the user to upgrade to the product which has been designed using the new technologies. Some obsolete capability may have to be deleted because that's what the requirement. The new updates have come up and the old thing have to be removed from the software project or from the hardware devices. uh, I'm I will restart the WebEx because now time is almost running out. So I will restart it and then you remain in the login state, and then we can rejoin the next meeting of it.